Hello, and welcome to Money Management for the New Millennium, the practical tool for money management on the path to success. I'm Gary Canada, your host on this journey to financial security and freedom. At the conclusion of this class, the learners will be able to define all of their income sources and types, breaking them between passive income, residual income, sporadic income, and consistent income. And they'll also be able to categorize all their expenses, breaking them into needs, wants, and savings, of course, and place them all into a budget plan. They'll be able to strategize and formulate improvements to create a budget, a balanced budget, and compare it to a baseline standard, which we will develop a little bit later in the class. They'll learn how to develop long-term and short-term goals and be able to illustrate how to break a long-term goal into a series of short-term, easily obtainable goals, making the long-term goal more practical. They'll be able to apply budget strategies and goals together in a homogeneous way to achieve the goal sets that they have outlined in their long-term and short-term goals. This class, like any other class or course, has certain specific needs and requirements necessary to practically implement the program and to create a positive learning environment. Project organization is critical to the flow of a project and to make sure that things are working as intended through the class process. Providing control and focus on the flow of interactions in class processes is needed to keep the class flow organized and fluid. It also helps the students understand and the instructor understand what's coming next and what's expected of them. It's also critical to keep the stakeholders informed, especially during the development phase of any course intervention. Maintaining communication and reports to the stakeholders allows them to know and understand where the project stands and whether it's running on time and on budget, or if there are some adjustments that need to be made. Tracking the completed phases. There's two facets to this. One is during the development, and tracking the completed phases allows you to know what your next step is. The use of milestones and timelines help to break up the time you manage, schedule how much time for each segment. During the course, it's important to keep track of the completion of the various elements of the learning intervention so that the instructors and the students both know where they are in the learning process. This facilitates the students managing their time in a better fashion and also allows the instructors to know when assignments are expected to be done and be able to provide adequate feedback and grading to the elements, allowing for things to run a lot more smoothly and a lot more organized. Ethical considerations are essential to any learning intervention or any learning project that's being put together. If you don't pay attention to the ethical issues, you can find problems with things like copywriting, and not adhering to requirements for the ADA, and a whole plethora of issues. There's also moral issues, which generally don't get listed, but we have a moral responsibility when we're putting together a learning intervention to provide a platform that is versatile enough that anyone can participate in the program and gain knowledge and accomplish the goals of the course. As mentioned earlier, the ethical concerns are broken into three basic categories: the ethical issues, the legal issues, and of course, moral issues. Ethical concerns can include compliance with the ADA requirements to ensure all learners can participate. Providing gender and ethically neutral language to allow the learners to have a comfortable learning environment is also important. The legal issues are primarily dealing with things like copyright materials and references and obtaining proper licensing. Also copyrighting all simulation packages that are developed in this particular learning endeavor will be essential because they will be customized. Morally, the project educators are responsible to deliver what is promised to the learners and to ensure the learner gets full value for the fees they pay for the learning intervention, should it be an intervention that charges a fee. Learning and performance outcomes lays out a roadmap of what the learners will be presented and what measures are used to determine if the performance that they are providing adheres to the outcomes that are expected. The first learning outcome for this intervention is to formulate strategic budget plans. Obviously, you can't manage your money adequately without having a strategic budget, and you have no way of truly knowing where you stand financially. The learning outcome, the learners will be able to formulate this strategic budget plan and to ensure that it is balanced so that they have no more money going out than there is coming in. The performance outcome is measured by being able to create an income and expense report and prioritize the expenses based on the cost and balancing their budget. The learners will formulate strategic budget plans through virtual instruction, video presentations, and class discussions. The class will build two charts, one for income that identifies the source as consistent, residual, or sporadic, and the second will be categorizing the expenses into wants and needs. The class will illustrate techniques to identify high interest expenditures and strategies to eliminate these debts quickly. The key purpose to that is there are certain debts that incur higher interest rates, which means the monies that we owe cost us more in the long run. So to save money, we need to mitigate these expenses as quickly as possible, so they should get priority and focus. The instructor will demonstrate the impact of interest and the benefit of paying these expenses off early in a budget. The viability of the budget is the second outcome. Evaluating the viability of a strategic budget plan created in the previous exercise, the learner will illustrate expense reduction processes through prioritization. We discussed that earlier, targeting high interest debts, as well as reducing expenses where you can. Illustrate budget balancing techniques. Here you might see where you can relieve yourself of certain want expenses that you have month by month, cutting down on your cable expenses, your internet, things of that nature. Illustrate effective resources, surplus allocation and disbursement. This is really important because once you begin to put your budget together and learn how to better manage your money, you will find that you'll have more money left over at the end of each pay period. Knowing what to do with this money so that it is leveraged and finding ways to make it work harder for you than you had to for it becomes essential to opening up the path towards financial success, financial security, and then later on to financial freedom. The third outcome is building a baseline budget. There's a theory called the 50-30-20 theory that breaks down your budget into 50% of your income going to needs, 30% of your income going to wants, and 20% going into savings. This creates an ideal platform for building financial security very rapidly. And this is the goal that we all need to strive to achieve, either this or better in the early days. Demonstrating how to build the baseline budget based on the 50-30-20 theory and comparing it to the expenses outlined in the previous exercise, and by using we'll be utilizing a developed simulator to show the impacts over a period of time between your current budget and the baseline budget and how much of a difference it can make. This will give incentive to the learner when they begin to apply these concepts in real life to strive more towards the 50-30-20 basis. The learners will also be able to investigate the impact of unpredictable changes in income and expenses and how they impact the budget plan. It's easy to see how being downsized can dramatically impact your budget, but then also having an increase in income will have an equally large impact and can result in making bad decisions by making moves too rapidly. Some of these things we will lightly discuss in the open discussion forums. Now that we have our baseline budget constructed and we have our actual budget constructed, it's time to compare our budget to the baseline. The learner will be able to compare their current budget to the 50-30-20 baseline budget and be able to identify areas where they need to make adjustments so that they can better achieve their goals. The performance outcome, the learner will demonstrate the process of comparing the baseline budget to the actual budget based on income and expenses, and note any differences, whether negative or positive. Of course, if their differences are positive and they're actually achieving better results than the 50-30-20 plan, they really don't need to make any changes. Analyzing the difference between the 50-30-20 baseline and identifying the differences and formulating ideas to achieve their baseline budget should they be falling short of the baseline budget goals. The fifth outcome is goal setting. Nothing could be more important to maintaining the discipline necessary to follow a budget than having goals and being able to achieve them. The learning outcome in this particular section, the learners will be able to build both short-term and long-term goals and break the long-term goals into a series of short-term goals. Analyzing the results from the previous simulations and determining a path and plan to bring the actual budget developed to the baseline budget, or to determine that the actual budget is achieving results faster, the learner shall lay out a framework for finding solutions to budgetary shortfalls and disaster avoidance. The learner shall also identify and develop strategies that will meet the agenda of reaching the baseline budgetary goals, identifying long-term goals, and determining how to break them into a series of short-term plans that make them more obtainable. One of the important issues of goal setting is uh, planning or setting goals so that you can have rewards along the way. One of those goals would be something similar to taking a vacation to Paris. Obviously, you have to budget for that, and that is a viable goal. It may be a long-term goal, or it may be a short-term goal, but being able to break it down into steps of what it will take to achieve that goal is what makes adhering to the budget much more palatable. The final outcome is simply entitled Wrapping It Up. And the whole purpose of wrapping everything up, tying everything that we've covered through the entire learning intervention, is it allows for a deeper understanding, the learner to achieve a deeper understanding of the concepts that are presented. Some of the concepts can be seemingly complex or confusing, so this is a good opportunity for them to actively participate in open discussions and utilize the simulator to illustrate the impacts of decisions that they think they want to make. This would be a good place for the students to say, well, what if we did this or what if we did that? Take those results, take those ideas, feed them into the simulator based on the income outlines that we have, and be able to show the learner both graphically and numerically the impacts of those decisions or those ideas so that they can get a natural feel of the impact of decisions that we make. The delivery methods used in this intervention, like any other intervention, are crucial to the presentation of the learning intervention. If we don't have adequate delivery methods, then the students will have difficulty in obtaining and assimilating the information that's presented. The Money Strategies course will be delivered as an instructor-led course, and we'll be utilizing a learning platform called Moodle. The materials packet that we will be providing for the students prior to the class will contain various applications, instructions, guidelines, notes, tips and tricks, and a few other select tidbits of information that the students will find useful throughout the course. This will allow the students to follow along during the class and actively participate in all exercises. They, of course, will have access to the simulator where they can run their own numbers and see the impacts that they have since this will be done virtually. The use of Moodle will be utilized to assist in the learning intervention since it is a virtual classroom format. One of the nice features of Moodle is that during the class, the instructor can see the students, and the students will have a means to interact not only with the instructor but also with each other. If they have high-speed internet, they will be able to interact via FaceTime. If they don't have high-speed internet, then they will have to rely on just using the discussion forums. The active simulator that is provided will allow the students and the instructor to demonstrate the impacts of various factors and variables within a budget and how each one plays a strategic role in the overall outcome. The discussion forums are there to enhance class participation and input. This allows the students to share life experiences and life knowledge that they have gained and will enrich the learning process not only for the students, but also for the instructor. As with any other instructional intervention, there are strategies that the instructor will use to better assist the students in the learning process. Some of the instructional strategies to be used will be the instructor lectures, which will include the definition of terms and processes, since some of the terms that are used in this class may be foreign to the students, and some of them may have, some of the learners may have a preconceived idea of the meaning, and that may not be suited for the particular application. There'll be a demonstration of concepts. That demonstration will be done through the facilities like spreadsheets and a custom simulator. And to that end, with the learner participation, they'll be able to interact with the simulations with the simulator. Certain elements of the simulator will allow all of the classmates, all the class students, to actively participate in the simulation, and all the students being able to see the impacts of the changes that were made, who made the changes, and what the end results were, and allow for discussion of the impacts of these changes and decisions. One of the key things to keep in mind during this intervention is there will be a income and expense profile already created, so all of the students will be working from the same dollar figures. They also will have the liberty of running the simulations and doing the various charts and tables with their own budget during the class, if they so choose, and allow the instructor to examine those and make recommendations or suggestions, as well as their peers can do the same. The assessment plan is important because without an assessment, the learner has no benchmark to know how they are progressing through a course or program. In this particular learning intervention, the use of a checklist style rubric will be deployed to allow the learners and the instructors to track their progress. The reason that the checklist is being used is because of the type of platform and the type of information that's being presented. There are no real long, drawn out assignments. Everything is interactive. It's designed to be interactive so that it better illustrates the impacts of the various phases of the entire learning process. Successful completion of the program, the learners will be issued a certificate of completion. This gives them a sense of accomplishment, and the plan is to have not only a virtual certificate that they will be issued, but also they will be issued a printed certificate of completion. Instructional resources are important to any learning intervention. Without adequate resources, the instructor will not be able to perform the instruction, and the students will not be able to assimilate the information being presented. The required resources are broken down into two categories: content analysis and the delivery method. In the content analysis, some of the requirements that will be needed is high-speed internet. This will be essential. The Moodle platform, since it is the foundation of that presents the class materials to the instructors. PHP and JavaScript is needed to develop the simulators, since all the simulators will be web-based, allowing the students to interact with the simulators in real time. Within the delivery method, there will be a server needed to host the Moodle platform with internet access for their learners via their web browsers, whether they're using their tablet or a smartphone or a laptop. It's going to be designed in such a way that they'll be able to participate using any of these platforms. The instructional package will provide notes and outlines to aid the students in following the materials. There also will be other little applications. There'll be some Excel spreadsheets, things of that nature, tools that they'll need not only for the class, but can also use when they've completed the course. They can use it in their personal life. There'll also be a platform tutorial via video to assist in navigating the Moodle learning platform. There also will be a written how-to and a PowerPoint presentation to illustrate the various steps of navigating the learning platform and make life easier for the students and minimize intimidation. The project timeline for any project is important because it helps to keep the project on track and on budget. Anytime that you have a project that has a runaway timeline, the cost of production becomes impractical. The timeline to complete this course is 5 weeks. This includes a planning stage where reviews and changes could be made by the stakeholders as well as the developers. The completion of the program is for the learning materials and the student packages that need to be created, edited, and approved. These student packages, of course, will include the spreadsheets, links to the simulators, instructions, and videos for navigating the Moodle system, and class expectations, as well as notes and additional tools that the students can use both in the classroom and in life. The end of design stage is reached once the certificates are designed and approved. The plan for delivering both a virtual as well as a printed certificate adds a little more value to the overall program. The end of course milestone indicates that the program has been deployed and ready to take classes on a continual basis in the segment of one group at a time. And the way this is going to work is there will be a call for people to enroll. The classes will be set up at specific intervals, and once there are enough students that are interested and apply to take the course, then the course begins shortly after, and it will run for a fixed period of time, allowing the students to work together in a group. The plan is to not present the course for just one or two people, because you don't have the kind of interaction that this type of course would benefit from. I want to thank you for looking at this presentation and evaluating the plans. Feel free to ask any questions, provide any feedback. The credits, that there really aren't any beyond the fact that all parts of this presentation are created exclusively with Microsoft PowerPoint 365, and all of the images that are in there come from the 365's free library of icons. So beyond that, there's really no other copyrightable material or reference material presented. Once again, I want to thank you for taking your time to look at this, to participate in this presentation, and I hope you have a wonderful day.